On this episode of the Sports Opinions podcast, Jake Brown, the executive producer of sports podcast at the New York Post, host of the Life New York podcast, and a WFAN Mets columnist, joins the show as we talk about the Astros fallout and how it affects the Mets and the Yankees, a little Knicks and Nets talk and about where each franchise is right now, and we also get into the Jets and Giants, what their seasons were like and what their futures could possibly be like. And without any further ado, enjoy the show. What's up, sports fans? Welcome to the Sports Opinions podcast. I'm your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. And with me today is someone who's doing something over at the New York Post that definitely caught my eye and I find very interesting because there's no other major news source in our New York metropolitan area that's doing what the Post is trying to do, and I think it's really cool. He is Jake Brown. He's the executive producer of sports podcasts over at the New York Post. He's host of the Life New York podcast and also a WFAN Mets columnist. Jake, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? Busy times in New York sports as the future of a manager in Queens is in doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a weird time right now. You know, I feel like that's always a situation if you're a Mets fan. You always find yourselves in a weird time. But quickly, what are you doing over at the New York Post? What's going on there? Because like I said, what you guys are doing over there is unique. No other major New York news source has done this with the sports teams. What are you doing over there? What's the end game and the goal that you guys are trying to accomplish?
Well, a lot of the newspapers don't have podcasts, so while we're late here at the Post, and I just started in October, I think they're very much in. Everyone's like, podcasts are coming. No, I mean, they've taken over, and it's such a great brand, an iconic brand, and a monster platform that they needed it. So I think, we have 4 shows now, and we're going to add Mets and Yankees, and then eventually more later in the year once these start growing a little bit. But, we're having some success so far, and it's just getting started. So I'm excited for where it can go. And once, the resources are there where we could take it. So it's, it was a long time coming for the Post, and it's a paper that I read a lot as a kid. So for me, it was cool for this opportunity to come up, and it's, it's right on my alley. So I've been doing a lot of co-hosting some of these shows as well, doing some of the interviews while producing them all. So it's been a fun job through the first 4 months here.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of cool things going on. Now, what are the 4 teams you have? I know you have the Jets because I'm a big Jets fan. What are the 4 teams that you currently have? Give out the names of those podcasts real quick. So if anyone wants to go look them up, they can go see what they are.
The Jets show is Gangs All Here. Giants show is Blue Rush. Blue Rush has been our most popular show, most listened to show so far. That's with Jimmy Fallon, comedian who's on Fox News and Fox News Radio as well. Big Giants fan, and me and him have a lot of fun with that show. I co-host that with him. We do a lot of gambling talk too, and we're doing very well with that show. And then the Knicks show is Big Apple Bucket with Kazim, who's on SNY, Kazim Famuide. I can never say his last name right. and our Rangers show, also very popular. It's actually close to the top 200 in sports, which isn't a huge deal, but it's kind of cool considering it's a hockey podcast, and hockey podcasts usually don't do great. It's usually 4th on the totem pole. So that's with Ron Duguay, who's a very popular former Ranger that everyone loves. So he's been fun to work with. So those are 4. The Mets Yankees will come March, and then more after that.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's cool. I gave a listen to the most recent episode of the Jets one today. I'm a Jets fan, so I liked what I heard. I think it can go far. And if you guys, anyone out there does check it out, it's not always just, Jake or whoever just talking to themselves. You guys have some pretty awesome guests that have already come on. I've seen Dick Vermeil was on one, and you have a lot of really cool, really relevant guests. And I guess that's kind of the power of the New York Post. You guys have those resources, and I find it to be, a cool breath of fresh air to see a newspaper like that take the initiative and get cool sports podcasts. So kudos to you. I'm pulling for you guys to be successful.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I've built up a strong contact list for my previous spots, and I've also had help of others, help with some of the writers, and so yeah, we've had cool guests. Jets one, Rex Ryan, Mark Sanchez. I mean, all the big Joe Namath was on the first episode. So Knicks, we had Clyde and Charles Oakley and Chris Childs, Charlie Ward. So we've had a lot of fan favorites. Giants, we have had everyone. I mean, Carl Banks, Harry Carson, Leonard Marshall, Sean Landetta, Brandon Jacobs. So we've had a lot of cool guests, and more to come once the show's on the map a little bit more. We'll be able to get some more of those celebrities that I'm aiming for, and rappers and guys like that.
Awesome. Yeah, let's everyone out there listening. Let's get some help. Let's listen it up because it's just a cool thing, cool venture that's going on. So let's jump into the meat and potatoes of the show. I want to start off right away from the top. You mentioned the manager over in Queens might be in trouble. Everyone knows if you listen to the show, we covered the Astros penalty. I think everyone knows my opinion on it. Jake, what's your opinion on what the Astros got?
I think they got a fair punishment. I don't think there was honestly a ton more they could do. I don't know if they could do a lifetime ban exactly. And it's tough because it's, excuse me, a great manager and a great general manager, two of the best in the game. So they're probably going to get a job somewhere, I'd imagine. Honestly, in the society that we're in, with a lot of people getting second and third and in sports, sometimes fourth and fifth chances, I'd be a little surprised if they weren't back somewhere. I don't think they could have been much harsher. I mean, you gave him $5 million, draft pick, suspended a guy for a year. I don't think it was detailed. It was a detailed cheating scandal. It was very big. But I don't think they knew every single fact about it, which put them to bed for life. I think there was a lot more layers to this. And, I think Beltran could be screwed. And as sad as it is, I honestly don't think he should be fired for this. The Mets, for a image reason, might fire him. And I know there's a reported tweet out there that was deleted from someone that was apparently related to him or something, who had the Beltran news that he got hired days before, saying that he's gone as the best manager. So in the next day or two, we might hear that he is gone. So that shows you how serious it is, that it's affecting a player who's player at the time who is now a manager in another organization. It shows you how serious it is that even he could be gone. So it's a huge scandal, and I think MLB got it right. And I'm curious to see what else happens out of it. We don't know the exact core of discipline. We don't know the Beltran discipline, if there is any. So there's going to be more to this story. It's kind of putting a black cloud over the game going into spring training. This is not good. I mean, it's better it happens now than February, March, but still there's going to be a lot of people who are sour about this for a while, and especially Dodger fans.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. As a Yankees fan, I'm a little sour. And I believe that the fact that the players aren't getting anything, when in the report, it pretty much clearly mapped it out. Yes, Cora was basically the main guy getting all the stuff arranged, but the players were the one that really pushed to get a better system of stealing signs. And Cora was kind of just their vehicle and their higher up to really make them accomplish this. So I'm a little annoyed that the players aren't getting anything. So that's why I think Beltran's not going to get any penalty. I think where they could have went harder is they could have hurt their international pool with the international money, or what they could do there, because that is to me, that's a bigger part when it comes to baseball than even draft picks is the international stuff. So that's where I feel that the MLB missed. I think a $5 million fine being the max is kind of a joke with how much money that all these teams pull in. So the money is neither here nor there. For me, that was kind of just a whatever throw in. But overall, I was a little disappointed that the players aren't getting anything. In terms of Beltran being fired with the Mets, it's kind of a situation where the Mets had to know that this situation could pop up, that the potential of sign stealing and cheating has been there since 2017. They hired Beltran knowing he was on that team. So I feel like they had to know they could be in this situation. I like the Beltran hire, so I don't want to see him fired. But at the same time, if he jumped from the Yankees to the Stros and then was trying to help the Stros beat the Yankees, I wouldn't be mad to see him go in that way.
Listen, I just don't want Terry Collins back, and I hate people who tweet me says, why? I mean, did you watch this guy manage? He's
See, I
terrible.
think Eduardo Perez is
It's
going to be the guy. He was number two, and I was listening to WFAN, Evan and Joe, and they were pretty confident that if Beltran goes, it's going to be Perez. Since he finished number two, he's not coaching currently, and that would make sense.
And I'm fine with that. I'd much rather have him than Terry Collins. The Terry Collins chapter is done. Don't bring him back. I don't care that his relationship with the team. It's just different. And I don't know if Eduardo's the right guy, but I'd rather have him. Honestly, the popular move amongst fans would be David Wright. As out of the box as it would be. You're already still paying him, one. And two, Carlos Beltran is also never been a manager. So it's not like there's a vast difference between Wright and Beltran, besides Beltran doing a little advisory stuff the last couple of years with the Yankees. It's not like a monster difference if you go from Beltran to Wright.
So let's go completely out of the box here. A guy that the Mets are going to be paying forever still. Let's get Bobby Bonilla. Let's make him the manager. You're paying him anyway. Bring him in.
God.
Let him.
Brings back bad memories.
So let's go to this from a little bit of a Yankees perspective here. Teixeira said today that he feels cheated. He's with CC. CC said they feel cheated. That they believe that I think the Astros should have their championship stripped. A lot of harshness. Are the Yankees in the right with being as pissed as they are? There's a lot of Yankees that seem really pissed. Are they in the right? Are the Dodgers in the right? Or even the Red Sox, who they beat in the divisional round, are they all correct with being as angry as they are in terms of getting cheated?
Yes, I do think players should worry about the integrity of the game that went up against them. Honestly, I feel more bad about the Dodgers. I care less about the Yankees. I mean, come on. They got 27 World Series. I mean, it's just pure insanity. Like, they've won enough. So teams like the Dodgers who haven't won in ages and they lose back-to-back series, I mean, that's frustrating. But listen, I don't think it makes – I mean, people are making it like so many games change because of this. It had an impact. It may have affected some games. But in the end, players are skilled. I mean, certain players have a certain level of skill. It sucks for the game, but I don't think it automatically means it changed the outcomes of the World Series and people want to vacate the trophies. It's just purely insane. So, yes, I do think the players should be mad more because the ones who didn't cheat are going up against these guys, and they're thinking, what the heck's going on? Like, this shouldn't be happening. If they could do this, I want to do this, or vice versa, or not do it at all. I mean, no one really wants to cheat, and these guys were led on by the coaching staff. It wasn't, I think a lot of the players didn't want to do it, but because it was just happening, they did it. So I don't know. There's too many layers to peel on this. But, I think fans should be mad. Players should be more mad, but I'm not sympathetic. I'm sorry for Yankees fans. You guys have won enough. If this happened to the Mets, yes, I'd be mad because we never win.
Now, I have to ask you. A lot of Mets, again, I said I was listening to Evan and Joe, and I do listen to the fan, and the fan is very Mets heavy. The fans' position right now generally is Beltran shouldn't be fired. And I feel a lot of Mets fans are really on that road. Is it more of a thing where Mets fans don't want Beltran fired? Because, God, the Mets just want a break. Beltran seems like he's a good guy. He seems like he could do the job. And just getting him embroiled in this just seems like a super Mets thing. Is this kind of a sympathetic thing where the Mets are just like, please, just leave our manager alone? Just leave us alone. We're not involved, really. Leave us alone.
Yeah, I really don't think he should be fired, and I do think it is kind of ridiculous. It's just, it's typical Mets. It's like they get in the middle of something that they were never a part of, and it's just the Queens Bridge is falling down. I mean, it's just it's the same thing every year. Something insane, from the lineups out of order to running out of fireworks to this. I mean, it's just every year there's just pure nonsense. So I don't think he should be fired, but now it's a black cloud. Honestly, the right move is for him to speak up and admit it and maybe say, I'm moving on from this. Now that they keep delaying it, it's made it just more shady. So you're in a tough spot. I don't think Mets fans, honestly, either way are going to be mad if he stays. I don't think people are going to be furious because I think people like him and the fact that he's a former player. And if he leaves, you're going to say, all right, like he never managed anyway. It's not like he's going to be a big difference from Eduardo Perez. So it's four middles. It's not inch, and he had nothing to do with it. It's different, but it's different because it's a coach who was a player a year ago. It's just a unique situation in general. I mean, think about it. Scandals don't happen. I mean, take steroids out of the picture. You never see anything like this. I mean, this is, in terms of as large of a scale proportion as this is, you rarely see this. Obviously, besides the Black Sox scandal, you don't see these kind of scandals. So this is definitely unique from past years and from the steroid era and everything.
Fortunately for Mets fans, and I think Mets fans all you guys could take a breath. I actually trust Brody Van Wagenen. I think he's made a lot of really good moves. I think he's a smart guy. So I think, this is a little bit of a misstep, not coming out and saying anything, but I think he'll make a right decision in the end, regardless of what it is. So I'm cool with that. But we're going to transition to a franchise that has very little trust in their front office and in their whole process. The New York Knicks, NBA, Perry and Mills up there. They hired Fizdale. He was supposed to be the guy. I like David Fizdale. He's out. Knicks are currently playing better under Mike Miller. They're still not a great basketball team, but they are playing better. Who would you ideally like to see the Knicks grab as head coach? Would you like them to stick with Mike Miller, do kind of what they did with Woodson, try and give him, after the interim job, hire him and give him a few years, or go out and get a pretty high profile or a better candidate?
I would be shocked if Mike Miller stays. I think he'll stay in interim. I think maybe he gets promoted and he's the assistant next year. I can't imagine them making him their full-time head coach. Honestly, I want Jeff Van Gundy back, but I don't know if he wants to come back, if he has any interest. I think he would be a leader and a voice that players trust more than some of these guys they've had in the past. I don't know. Mark Jackson, I guess I'd be okay with. I'm not in love with him, but I don't hate him. I just think they do need to go out and get a proven coach, whoever that is. They can't go in and get an assistant and turn head coach like a Fizdale. It's unfortunate because Kenny Atkinson, in my mind, is one of the most underrated coaches in the league with the Nets.
Yes, he
and
is.
The Knicks just cannot find the right guy, head coach. I mean, year after year, it's been the same thing since Van Gundy left. So it's like, why not go back to the guy that worked? And it was still good when he left. He just kind of quit. He gave up. I guess there was something going on there. And, again, that goes back to Dolan and ownership. But I'd like to see Van Gundy back, honestly.
Would you be okay with Jason Kidd coming over? Currently, one of the, basically a assistant head coaches over there on the Lakers, and had his stint with the Nets, which was pretty good over there with the Bucks. Giannis wasn't the superstar that he is now when Kidd had him. So would you be okay with Kidd coming and kind of working with young talent again over with the Knicks?
I would be, but that's because I'm biased and I love Jason Kidd. I mean, he was my favorite player of all time. I mean, he got me to like the Nets. When the Knicks were just garbage in 2000s. Yeah. I love the Nets because of Kidd. I mean, I was going to Nets games plus tickets were like so cheap versus the Garden. You were using like your allowance money when I was like 12, 13 going to see
You're
the
not
Nets
kidding.
go to the finals and Kidd and Kmart. So, I don't think he's an amazing coach, but again, he's a guy I would take over Miller, over, he's has coaching experience, and he wasn't garbage with the Nets. I mean, they had good times. There was just off the court stuff and everything that went on. So, yeah, I'd be fine with Kidd.
All right. So, now looking a little forward with the Knicks, what are they, in a way, what are they trying to do? I don't think Julius Randle is their future. I think he's a good player. He's someone that can attract other guys. But I don't see him being the franchise. I see a Mitchell Robinson, a Kevin Knox, and R.J. Barrett. Those need to be the three. Do you see the front office with the Knicks being smart and kind of building around these three? Or are we just going to continue to see them nickel and dime veterans in and kind of flunder around and maybe just let one of these guys go, unfortunately?
Yeah, I mean, I would love if they traded Julius Randle. He's an okay player, but he's a ball hog. He's a turnover machine, and I think there's so much better when he's not on the court. So I would trade that guy in a heartbeat. I mean, if they could I honestly am not against a Frank and Randall trade for Drummond. I know a lot of people were, and the Knicks declined that, but to me, if you think you have a shot next year, since Drummond only has a year left, then go get him, because Randall's only got a 2-year deal. You pay him $20 million a year, and Frank, to me, is still an unknown. Listen, Frank shows flashes, but he's so wildly inconsistent, and I don't know. I'm not ready to give up on Frank, but Frank and Randall, to me, for Drummond, makes sense. He's a double-double machine. He's not a franchise-altering player, but I think you're upgrading by getting Drummond. And the argument to that would be, oh, but Mitch Robinson. Well, you need more than one big man. I know Mitch Robinson's been good, but he also can't play 40 minutes a night, and he's a liability besides dunking. I mean, he can't shoot. He can't make free throws. So he's kind of a good defensive player that you could trust in alley-oops, but his shooting percentage is so high because they're all dunks and layups. So anything outside 2 feet away, the guy is not that good. So, Mitchell Robinson should be there, but a combination of Drummond and Mitchell Robinson to me makes sense. And Kevin Knox, I'm not sold on him, but I do think you're right. He needs to play a little bit more and be in the rotation, but essentially when they do put him in, he's, again, inconsistent. So it's a lot of inconsistent players and guys that won't be here for very much longer. I think their plan is going to be to do it all again this summer. See if they could strike on one big free agency, if they could strike on a trade and bring a star in here, and maybe that brings other guys. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, you got to trade Randall, and you got to see what you could get from Marcus Morris.
Yeah, I agree. I think those two, they're definitely taking up a lot of shots that could be going to the young guys. And, the Drummond thing's interesting. So I think Drummond's almost at the point of his career where coming off the bench isn't something he'd be opposed to, and becoming that big-time bench defensive stopper that makes sure the second unit's playing good defense while also cleaning up all the boards. So I think he's almost there. That would be interesting. I would like to see the Knicks continue to build where they are, because I don't think, I've said it before, I don't think it's far-fetched that Giannis jumps ship to the Knicks if he sees a structure in place and a good young core that can win basketball games. He's not going to want to do it on his own, but I think he would come to the New York market, because especially if KD and Kyrie are balling, what better would it be than come into the Knicks, carry them, and make a real rivalry out of it?
I am not ready to say that. Obviously, that's the dream scenario, but I'm not. I'll sign off on that in a heartbeat. But that still seems like a long ways away.
It's weird. All the Knicks confidence going into this offseason, and this isn't me gloating as a Nets fan, but everyone had that firm belief that we might miss out on one, but we're gonna at least get one big name. KD is probably before the injury, obviously. But there was a lot of confidence that the Knicks were going to get at least one superstar. And now it's funny to see the switch with, after this, how this free agency went, talking about Giannis, Knicks fans, and everyone's just kind of like, I don't want to. My heart was already broken. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not confident in anything right now. Steve Mills has got to get traded. Steve Mills has got to get fired. I don't know how this guy has survived. I feel like he's got dirt on Dolan or something, but he's got to go. And I'm not sold on Perry yet. I'm not going to blame much of Perry. He hasn't been here as long, but I know this was a basketball guy. I think it starts with ownership, and it's just a rough culture in that front office. If Dolan actually did sell the team, or the Knicks got a new owner, I think you would essentially have the parade before the Knicks even get back to the playoffs. That would be a big deal for this franchise. And it starts from top to bottom with these teams, and you see teams do great who have tremendous ownership. And, it's hard to sell a guy like Giannis to meet with James Dolan and meet with Steve Mills and have them say, hey, we have an idea of winning here, when they haven't won in forever. So, it's a tough situation for the Knicks. Hopefully these young guys get them started, but there's still a long ways to go here.
So transitioning over to Flatbush and Atlantic, going away from Manhattan, the Nets, right now they're as healthy as they're going to be minus KD. Kyrie's back. He's not playing tonight on the second half of the back-to-back against the Sixers, but he's back. He's playing well, played well against the Bucks the other night, and great on his debut. They have the young core. The Nets are kind of where the Knicks are trying to be in a few years, where they have a good young core, have some superstars blending in, and going to try and make a legitimate run at the thing if they can. But the issue is KD going to come back as KD? I still think 80% KD is a top 10 player in the league, so that's not an issue. But Kyrie definitely has the bugaboos that follow him. They're real. Will the Nets as a franchise be able to get to where they want to be with KD, Kyrie, Spencer Dinwiddie, LeVert, and the current guys that they have there?
Oh, yeah. I think the Nets are going to be very good next year, and I think they're not done. I mean, they have a whole offseason to make some moves this summer, so you got to wait and see what they do and what depth pieces they add. They're going to be just fine. Durant's not going to play this year, so by September, October, he's going to be fine. I mean, he's going to be ready by April or May. So now he's just going to get some more time to get back in game shape, get some scrimmage in, and get some preseason and training camp in, and they're going to be good next year. They're going to be a top 5 team in the East. I think already they're good. Kyrie's been out, and I know they had a stretch where they were good without him. But in the long run, they're just a better team with Kyrie. I think the Nets will be good next year. And I think their young talent, I think, surpasses the Knicks by a long shot. I think guys like Dinwiddie and Joe Harris are light years better than any young Knicks player. I mean, they're not even in the same stratosphere, honestly. They make Frank and Knox look like bums. I mean, I know that sounds drastic, but that's essentially what it is. I mean, Dinwiddie's become an all-star. Jared Allen has become a stud. Joe Harris has become a stud. These are really good players that the Knicks are not there yet. And maybe they will. I'm not saying they don't get there, but they are still 2 or 3 years away from being even in the same conversation.
So just a quick question, but before we move on, what's going on with Alonzo Trier? Why, how do they let him? I don't even know how to put it. He's not the guy that he was last year. What's up with him?
He's ISO Zoe, and that answers it right there. He's just not a great team player. He's not a good defender. Where he puts the stats, but that's about it. And I don't think his effort is all the way there on both ends. He's a solid player, but you have to remember this guy wasn't expected to be like some star. I know people seen him have nights where he scores 20 or 25, but that'll happen in the next 5 games. He goes 1 for 10 from the field. So he was never consistent and great on both ends of the floor where he's this like must play player. So he fell out of the rotation. He's had a couple injuries here and there. And there's obviously other things that go down besides that we don't know about. We don't hear about some of the other things. Maybe he hasn't been in practice. There's off the court stuff. We don't know all the details of why he fell out of the rotation, but these coaches know. And listen, if a guy is not playing for that long of a stretch, there's other factors besides like, I saw Trier score 20 in a game last year. There's other things going around. So we'll see. I'm not ready to call him done, and I'm not ready to call him any good either.
I can attest to Trier's inconsistency because I follow Arizona in college basketball. I've liked them for years. So, yeah, I could tell you about Alonzo Trier's inconsistency.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, they'll have nights they're great, and then you don't hear or see about them from a week. And you got to preach defense. And some of these kids want to do all their stuff themselves and be the selfish player. And, I mean, his nickname's ISO Zoe, and he hasn't done a damn thing. Yeah. So I'm just gonna call myself ISO Jake, like in podcast, like after I haven't accomplished anything. Like, come on! I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Call yourself ISO Jake, have a host there, but don't talk to him once, don't let him speak at all, and then just introduce him and say bye to them at the end. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're gonna jump into some NFL talk. We're in the off season. It's been an interesting off season already. Let's start with the Giants real quick. They apparently got their man at head coach. Surprised, I think everyone around, I was surprised, and I like football. I really love football, and I had no idea who Joe Judge was. He's the head coach over for the Giants now, passing up McDaniels, and apparently, when they lost out at Rule, this has to be the guy that they wanted. How do you feel about the Joe Judge hire?
I'm very indifferent. Again, I didn't know much about him. He's under the Patriots and Alabama tree. He's got 5 titles. He did coach special teams and wide receivers when he was the only guy to do that. So there's obviously something special there. He's gotten high praise. from other coaches in football. I think he's better than Jason Garrett. I think Giants fans would have revolted if Jason
Well,
Garrett was
Garrett's
hired.
getting an interview for the coordinator spot.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna hire him. That would be. They know that would be dumb. I think they're just doing their due diligence. But hey, if Judge likes him, maybe he hires him, and you know, he could be better than that role. Who knows? I don't think it'd be the end of the world. You'd rather him do that than be that coach. But I'd be very surprised if that happens. I don't know. It's hard to answer because you have to wait and see, honestly, because he has such praise and is coached under two of the greatest coaches in their sport. You have to give him a shot. So Rule was the right hire was Rivera. He was gone. The other right hire was McCarthy. He was gone, and you were kind of left with all right, Rule or bust. And you didn't end up with bust, but you ended up with a guy that's an unknown. So we'll wait and see. I don't hate it. But I do hate that you give the guy like a 5-year deal. I mean, I know these coaches, you got to give him some security, but the guy's never coached, and he's already got 5 years locked up. And the Giants cycle, he'll be gone 2 or 3 years in. So let's just hope he lasts the whole contract, because if he does, that means that they are competitive again and making playoffs.
Now, I feel like they're going to be very particular on the coordinators, specifically because we might see a head coach that legitimately just kind of sits back. And not saying he's not going to be active, but I feel like since we've all heard about his inexperience. He hasn't called plays, special teams, worked on wide receivers, which you said, is definitely different. But he's not necessarily conditioned to do those things just yet. And he wouldn't be the first guy that jumps into calling plays and is successful. So it wouldn't be out of the realm. But we might see the first head coach in a long time that lets his coordinators do the job, oversees it, maybe learns for a year or two, but hopefully has success with the other guys running their systems. I think we could see, something interesting, but he needs to be good early. Whoever he gets needs to be good, because they need to develop Daniel Jones, because if he's not the guy, then that sets the Giants back another few years and wastes Saquon Barkley's best years.
Yeah, and a lot rides on what Gettleman does. I mean, they have so many holes to fill that there's only so much this guy can do with what they have right now. That's terrible. I mean, when you mention the Giants, it's Daniel Jones, Saquon, and everyone's like, Sterling Shepard? It's like, all right, okay. And anyone on defense? No. Jabril Peppers? Like Travis Lawrence? I mean, come on. They have so many holes in this team that Gettleman needs to have a monster offseason for this team to even consider 500, let alone the playoffs. So let's see what he does and hopefully improves the roster. And then we could judge, as ridiculous as it sounds. But, I want to see what Gettleman does and what he does in the draft and the offensive line and adding more receivers, because there's lots of work to do.
So the sports editorial team at the New York Post, take notes that you just got your headline. If the Giants are doing bad, judging Judge will be it, and you can credit Jake for that.
Yeah, whoever makes that will probably be fired for how corny it is, and then they can blame me.
You know what? Either way, listen, we've seen some pretty corny ones that actually work. So I think sometimes corny works best with these headlines.
Sad but true. Yep.
So we're going to jump over to the Jets. It was a really weird year, as it always seems to be for the Jets, lately, with between Rex and everything going on and all that. It's just weird. The Jets are weird. They started 1-7, ended 7-9. Darnold got mono, which is embarrassing. Out for 4 games. They lost all 4, but he looked, if you look statistically, you look at him play, he definitely looked better than he did as a rookie. Adam Gase had his ups and downs as well. I don't know how to feel about the Jets season, to be quite honest. You got to be pleased with 7-9 from where they were, but there was a lot of things that I saw from Gase that I didn't like. There were still some habits from Darnold that I didn't like. How do you feel about the season with the Jets?
I feel that they are terrible. I don't look at their record meaning anything when they beat a bunch of garbage teams. They have lots of holes to fill. They got to figure out the offensive line. They got to get more receivers. They got to keep the tight end on the field and Herndon. They have to get cornerbacks. They have to figure out the Jamal Adams situation. They have to get a pass rush. They need the linebackers and Williamson and Mosley to stay on the field. So, I mean, you name it. They have no kicker. I mean, this team from A to Z just has so many holes that Joe Douglas has to have just a Pulitzer Prize winning off season to get this team to be a contender. And I'm not saying they don't have pieces. You have your quarterback. You don't even know if you have your running back because they may want to trade him. And Adam Gase clearly hates Le'Veon Bell. I mean, he has not given him one ringing endorsement. No. And he's made it clear that he has no interest in Le'Veon Bell on the team. And that's a problem. So there are just so many issues with the team that I don't even look at them as a 7-9 team. I look at them as like a 4-12 team that got lucky to get to 7-9, which is unfortunate because we thought they were going to be a contender before the year. But then so many things went wrong, and the whole assembly situation, you lose him, and what happened with Khalil, and you set Harrison back a year for him not starting. So there's a lot of things that kind of fell behind this year that they need to bring back, and they need to have a great draft because we know they've had some terrible drafts and draft picks.
So definitely the job that Greg Williams did needs to be noted because he worked a miracle with that defense. They were quite literally down to a practice squad for like a few games, and they played very well. But it also might go to say, like, yes, this team is awful. All your points are granted. Is Darnold better than we all see? Was he part of the reason why that they overachieved? Is he more talented than we're – because, it's easy to see his faults when the team isn't good. But is he doing more than we notice? Because Simeon wasn't throwing the ball down the field before he got hurt, and Luke Falk was awful. So it's tough to judge there. But like you said, there's so many holes here, but they did end up getting to 7-9. They beat bad teams, but they were still a bad team. So it kind of – is that a credit to Darnold and Greg Williams and what those two did?
It's more credit to Greg Williams. I think Darnold was pretty mediocre, to be honest. I think he had his moments, but he has lots of room to grow. And again, he didn't have a full season, and that's alarming too. I know Mono is just one of those weird situations, but you want to see him start a whole 16 games without an injury and see the full course, and you haven't seen that. And it happened to happen after the first game, so it's a weird situation because that automatically sets you back what happens at the beginning of the year and not like towards the end or something like that. So I'd like to see him with a full year with a good old line and some targets. He hasn't had that yet. So we can't fully evaluate, but this is going to be a monster year coming up for him. This year was big, and you gave him a little bit of slack because of the mono and injuries, but you have got to see this guy come out of the gates flying to start the 2020 season because he's thrown picks, he's turned it over. There's been times he hasn't been good, different coaches, so he's had a lot of adversities to battle. But year 3 is no more Mr. Nice Guy. It's like you got to keep it real with this guy and take him legit. So I guess he's part of the reason they got to 7 wins, but I definitely give more credit to a guy like Greg Williams, and as you said, did some wonders with some guys that might not play next year.
Definitely. So I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. Who has a better offseason? Sets them. Who's not? I'm not going to ask you who has a better year next year, but who has a better offseason to set themselves up to have a better year next year? Gettleman, Douglas, Jets, Giants. Who gets it?
I'll say Douglas because I think he's been very highly regarded. And, Jets have a lot of holes to fill that I think they're going to be focused on. But, the Giants have the money to spend. I know the Giants have a lot of room to spend some money here. But I just trust Douglas more than I do Gettleman, honestly. That's what it comes down to.
All right. So with that closes out this episode of the Sports Opinions Podcast. Jake Brown, executive producer of sports podcasts at the New York Post, host of the Life New York podcast, and WFAN Mets columnist. Thank you so much for coming on, Jake.
Hi, man. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Jake, anywhere people can find you, any social media, obviously the podcast, where can people see what you do?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Jake Brown Radio.
Awesome. And again, go. I did it today. One of the easiest way to find the podcast, I use Google Play Podcasts or whatever. I just wrote New York Post in it. NY Post, and all the podcasts show up there. So if you Google New York Post podcasts, they all show up. So definitely go check it out if you're a fan of any of those 4 teams, or if you're just a New York sports fan, go check it out because they're awesome. Again, I'm Alex Cuesta, host of the Sports Opinions Podcast. Find me on Instagram and Twitter at A_Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30, Instagram Sports Opinions 30. search for us on Facebook. Go follow us there. And anywhere you're listening to this, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, YouTube, just to name a few, give us a good review and a rating and push us up so you can hear my awesome guests talk because they're all really cool, have great perspectives, and, just a bunch of good people. Right, Jake? You're a pretty good guy.
Exactly.
All right. So, again, with that, this closes out this episode of the Sports Opinions Podcast. Everybody have a good one.